Without further ado, I am going to introduce our keynote speakers. So I guess we're going to put a couple slides up for that. And I don't necessarily need to read all of these biographies, but I want to introduce Ashley Mitchell, who is a principal library assistant and MSLIS candidate at the Camden County Library System. Ashley has over 20 years of library experience in various departments. Her career goals include library management and DEI-related work. Increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion in libraries is of paramount importance to her. She currently serves on various DEI committees and teams. She also leads her library's diversity and inclusion team. Ashley is currently in graduate school for library and information science and is an ALA Spectrum Scholar and a 2020 recipient of a New Jersey Library Association scholarship. So we're going to welcome Ashley. We also have this morning Rosy Wagner, who is the lifelong learning librarian at the Burlington County Library System. Rosy is she has been working as a librarian for over 20 years and up until recently specialized in library services that empower teens. In her current role, she plans to expand literacy, enrichment, and access opportunities for library users of all ages. So let's welcome Ashley and Rosy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for those introductions. We are going to be sharing a different screen. So I think if I just share my screen, it should let me take over. Yes. Okay, great. I'm going to do this. Thank you, everyone, for being here today and for having us. Ashley, are you on there too?
I'm here.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure.
Let you know.
All the audio is working. Okay, great. And thank you, Ralph, for giving me so much credit. I've actually only been doing this for about 10 years, not 20. Ashley's been in the game a lot longer. So before we get started, I just want to put this information equity definition up here. And I think someone did reference that in the survey answers they gave to Teresa. This is from an annual review of information science and technology from 2003 or 2005, two different dates. So I really like this definition. Information equity is the fair or reasonable distribution of information among individuals, groups, regions, categories, or other social units, such that those people have the opportunity to achieve whatever is important or meaningful to them in their lives. And I think now that also includes just being able to thrive, being able to reach those life goals or just thrive within your daily life. We know you're attending because you care and you want to serve your communities in the best way that you can. We will be covering a variety of factors to consider when preparing an action plan to address information equity. Everyone in this conference, everyone attending, has valuable insight on these topics. I know everyone here has already done something in their libraries that falls under this category. So I want to encourage everyone to share their experiences or approaches to what we discussed today in the chat or in the Padlet. Additionally, if your library has existing DEI efforts, please contact Mimi Lee at the State Library. She's working to put together a group so that like a group like Ashley's and the group that I have here at this library, so that we can all get together and connect on the DEI efforts that we're doing within our libraries. We hope that this conference will inspire you to take further action. All of the speakers today will be sharing invaluable information and resources to address specific areas of inequities. Myself, Ashley, Gabriella Brajal, and Shazia Zamin will be moderating sessions at the end to help attendees determine actionable steps. Teresa did send out the action steps rubric that we've created just to help people get their mind around where to start. Absolutely nothing in that rubric is a must do. Everything in there is an example. Everything we're talking about today is an example. So I hope that what we have to share will be inspiring, and I look forward to seeing what everybody else has to say. Ashley, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, no, you're good.
The next one here. There we go. All right. So just to start with, when you address information equity in your communities, you want to identify the needs of your community before you go making decisions or implementing plans. So I guess that is to say, it may not be your need, it still matters. Make sure that you're honoring what people are asking for, what they say is missing. You can identify those needs by having community conversations, doing formal forums. You can partner with political figures in the community or other community organizations, or you can do something as simple as a survey, whether that's a paper survey people hand in or a survey in the form of a conversation at the desk. Make sure that you are finding out what people are asking for. And I really appreciated what Juliet said about the people who are not sitting in your libraries. If people aren't coming to your libraries, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't need you. It most likely means that they don't know what you have to offer, or that you haven't yet started to offer something that they can benefit from. And make sure that when you do reach out to your community and start these conversations, you respond with action. The effort of asking them what they need goes only so far. You need to show them that you are listening with, even if you're saying, we can't do that right now, but we've heard you and we're working on it. And that will promote usership and buy-in and a love of the library, but also you're not going to know what you're missing out on if you aren't following up on what you're doing with those conversations. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to, Ashley?
No, you covered everything.
Okay. I apologize. I feel like I
it's
put
okay.
you down for that slide and I took it. All right.
It's okay.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the pandemic a little bit, because I think, as we all know, things have become very much more clear over the past year and a half. Go ahead.
So the first thing I want to talk about is information redlining, which you'll see at the top under severity of social inequities. I want to start by defining redlining, because you all may not actually know what redlining means. So redlining is the practice of arbitrarily denying or limiting financial services to specific neighborhoods, generally because its residents are people of color or are poor. And that definition comes from the Encyclopedia of Chicago. Information redlining is the systematic denial of equitable access to information, information services, and information retrieval methods. So this term was coined by Tracy D. Hall, who is the executive director of ALA currently. And I want to make a point that I believe that the information redlining is something that is planned, is intentional, and it is obvious that people who have the means to pay receive better broadband access and service, and things are kind of determined based on where you live. A lot of people who live in areas that are underserved or have more people of color. I use the term BIPOC, and that's Black and Indigenous people of color. So you may hear me interchanging between people of color and Black and Indigenous people of color. But those are the people who are affected the most by information redlining. And there was another quote that I wanted to share with you. And most of this is coming from Tracy D. Hall, so I want to make sure I give her credit for this. And I will find it in a second. I'm actually looking at the presentation right now. Here we are. So there were some quotes, not quotes, some statistics that were really, really saddening, but we need to hear them. Blacks and Latinos are 10 years behind whites in levels of broadband access, and almost 4 times more Blacks have poor tech connectivity than whites. More than half of Blacks and Latinos could be underprepared for 86% of jobs by 2045. And this is part of what's called a digital racial gap, where people of color are not able to access the training that they need, information that they need. And that's why it's very important for libraries to provide the internet access, not just in the library, but going outside of the library by providing hotspots, different things like that. We'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation, but I just wanted to give you all an overview of information redlining, just as another way to kind of look at improving information equity from a digital lens.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, again, that goes back to, it may not be your need, but the need still exists in the community. Fortunately, thanks to a number of really helpful grants that have come out this year, both Burlington County and Camden County have started working to address the digital divide. So just a few examples of what we're doing over here. We did start a device lending program where customers can check out mobile Wi-Fi hotspots, as well as tablets that come with a mouse and a keyboard. We're working to be very lenient on the lending terms. We do have checkout periods and fines in place, but we are allowing people to keep those hotspots for months if they need to. Obviously, if you're checking out a hotspot repeatedly over time, internet is a paramount need for you. In conjunction with that, we have also been advertising information about the discounted internet rates. I forget the name of the program right now, but we're making sure to promote that to customers to make sure that we're getting people signed up for that service if it's something that works for their household. Initially, the device lending also had a big part in the home digital schooling that everyone was doing earlier this year and late last year. So now that we have, I feel like that's sort of returning to normal a little bit, we're making sure to push those tablets out into the community, to the areas where people might not have even a smartphone to sign up for a social service on their own. And coming soon, we will be premiering a mobile outreach unit related to the circulating device program. We're going to have those devices on the unit for people to check out. As is the case in most county systems, unfortunately, we don't have a branch in every corner of the county that needs us. So this mobile outreach unit will be able to get out to those underserved communities, promote this collection, get people signed up for library cards, and also do technology instruction and one-on-one help with that. And we are fortunate enough to have been chosen to be one of the spokes in the hub and spoke model that just premiered through the state library. Excuse me. So we will also be offering instruction for customers to take job certification programs online to get their basic computer literacy skills up, and we will hopefully be helping them access the more intensive programs at the hub libraries, the IC3 certification, things like that.
So at Camden County Library System, we have a few different programs that we have kind of started, and some of them have been ongoing for a while, that kind of help with increasing information equity from that digital lens. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the mobile hotspot lending. Having mobile hotspots available for your patrons is very important because even though we do have some initiatives, like for example, Comcast has the Internet Essentials, that may have been what Rosy was referring to. Now, that is still $10 a month. And I will say for some people, $10 is a lot. When you have to eat, you have to have internet, you might choose to eat. So we do have to think about, like back to what Rosy said, that it may not be your need, but it may be a need of someone that you serve. That $10 may be too much. And even though Comcast has also given, I believe, like 2 free months during the pandemic, they actually increased the speed of their internet. They doubled it because it was kind of discovered at the beginning of the pandemic that that was not enough speed for children to do like their virtual classroom learning, people working from home to do their work from home duties. So that still is not enough. So libraries who provide hotspot lending or just device lending, that really, really, really helps with bridging the digital divide and kind of reducing it. So our program, I'm gonna kind of give you like the quick and dirty version. The hotspots are cataloged and they're requestable, so people can kind of place holds on them and request them. They have unlimited data. The library does pay a monthly fee for that, but the cost is not extended to our patrons. And staff also have used them for programming and working from home during the pandemic, which was really great. And our virtual meeting rooms, that's another thing that I thought was really great for the community, because not everybody has access to the license Zoom that gives you unlimited, unlimited time for your sessions. So the way it works here, we have licensed Zoom accounts that we use for the virtual meeting rooms. Patrons request a virtual meeting room and then it gets processed internally by a reference department. And then on the day and time that the patron has requested the meeting, library staff will open the meeting room for the patron and then give the patron host access and then leave afterwards. So that way everything is kind of like a seamless transition for the patron to use Zoom. And then the last thing, which is kind of like our newest initiative, is we're going to have what's called library document stations. They are, we ended up getting funding to provide those at 2 of our branches through the CARES Act, the mini grant that was kind of like from the state library. So we applied for that and we got some funding to provide the library document stations at our Camden Ferry and Camden Downtown branches. And then we also received funds from the ARPA grant, and that's going to provide the addition of library document stations at all of our branches. So that was really good because this library documentation is really, really useful. It's like an all-in-one station where people can scan and they can fax, and the faxing is a lot cheaper than it would be if they were to fax at like Staples or like FedEx Kinko's or like any other place. And the scanned documents can be scanned to PDF and Word, like converted to PDF and Word. And they can be sent digitally through mobile phone, through your tablet, email, fax, Google Drive, etc. I'll see if I can find the information on this library document station and pop it into the chat, but it's really, really innovative. And I think it'll be great for our customers to use. And it's easy to use as well.
And another piece.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go first
okay.
for this part. I was thinking you will go first. Okay. So for so another way that we have increased accessibility to library services, to information in general, we have curbside services, and we have curbside services to this day, even though we are fully open to the public. We continue the service because customers, it's really convenient for customers. Not everyone can actually physically come into the branch, not just because of COVID. Some people could have physical disabilities or things going on that can prevent them from visiting the branch. Also, let me make sure I say everything I want to say, that I didn't leave anything out. So we actually were closed when we first initiated the curbside service back in, I believe, July of 2020. And then we reopened in the fall of 2020. Then we ended up closing again around November 2020. And then we reopened again in, I believe, April of 2021. And during that time, we still continuously provided the curbside services. When we weren't open to the public, I believe we had certain days where we would do curbside and certain hours, but I believe now at this point, it's kind of just incorporated into our daily service. So it's kind of like the hours we're open is the hours that we provide the curbside service. So yeah, that's one way to help your customers. And also we provided service for people who didn't have a car, because a lot of times curbside is advertised for people who don't have a car. So we also had walk-up options where I believe there was a table outside of some of the branches where people could walk up and get their materials as well. So we wanted to make sure that everyone had access to curbside service. And I believe we also had mobile printing as well that we provided for customers so they could pick up their printouts as well, curbside.
Yeah, I think everyone had, I don't think any one library or library system did it the same way. And so part of the reason we wanted to touch on that under the COVID side is because everyone did their best within the staffing that they had, within the policies that they have within the municipalities that they work for. So the way that we approached the response to COVID was as soon as we could open our doors, we did, and we didn't close them again. But we started out slow. We opened our doors strictly for computer use. We recognized that a huge population of the county would use our computers regularly to do what they needed to do, whether that was check email and connect with family on Facebook, or if it had was job applications or social service applications. So we opened our doors as soon as we could to allow people to use our computers again, and then we slowly started opening up our services over time. We had, staff scheduling to keep everyone safe, but we prioritized that specific service that we offered. We did have curbside as well, but in our case, we emphasized these reopening these services. So there wasn't any wrong way to do it. Again, everybody did what was within their power, but I think one of the best lessons that came out of this was not only what do people need from us, but what are we able to do? How did we get creative in responding to a pandemic that forced everyone home and out of the library? We're also going to talk a little bit about reducing barriers within the framework of information equity. Information equity should be about, again, like Jen Nelson's slide about justice, removing those barriers for people. Just providing something isn't necessarily enough. So consider barriers under these different umbrellas. Economic access is a big barrier for a lot of people. We think about accessibility, usually we think about something like ADA compliance, but accessibility also means economic access. In the past, we are currently not fine free, but in the past we have offered amnesty weeks for people to come and have their fines, their late fines forgiven on their card, and they're very, very popular. So again, with what works within your municipality and policies and who you're working with above the library, this is what works for us right now. And Ashley.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about going fine free. It is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. I would love to see more libraries go fine free. I'll just give a personal experience as growing up. I'm from Baltimore City originally, and a lot of my friends actually could not go to the library because either their parents or they did not return books on their account, so they couldn't come in. It was to the point where I would go to my friends' houses, and if I saw library books on their shelves, I would take them and return them because I wanted them to be able to use library services. But one thing I will say is that what you all may have seen as well is that a lot of libraries have chosen to go fine free. Both of the libraries that I used in Baltimore City, which is Enoch Pratt Library, and Baltimore County Public Library, which is the library that I used to work at, they both have gone fine free, and they're both very large systems. And the overwhelming response is very positive. So if it's something that you're considering for your library, it's definitely worth it. A lot of libraries, their funding that they would lose from fines is very low. For my library system, Camden County Library, it was, I believe, less than 1%. So kind of think about, you may be losing a little bit from fine revenue, but think about what you're gaining in providing access to your patrons and having patrons come in who were not able to come in or were embarrassed to come in or embarrassed to, return books or, have to pay or negotiate fines. Now they don't have to worry about that. We went fine free in 2019, July 1st, 2019. Now, I will say that if someone does lose a book, we do so charge the replacement fee for that. But other than that, we have eliminated fines for most items. Some items still have fines, like our museum pass is still approved fine, and there may be a couple of other exceptions that I can't remember right now. One thing that I really personally appreciated, because growing up in the inner city, Camden City, we also have branches in Camden City, and Camden City mirrors Baltimore City in a lot of ways, just a little bit smaller. So when I used to work at the branches in Camden City to cover shifts, a lot of people had fines, and they were prohibitive fines. It was blocking their accounts. So I realized that a lot of these patrons did not have access to books. They may be able to use our computers, but they're not having access to like other types of materials that they may need. So once we eliminated fines, a lot of those customers were able to come and use the library for more than just the internet, just looking at books. They were able to actually take them home with them. So that's something to think about as far as going fine free. And if you have any more questions about going fine free, I'll put my email, or it's going to be somewhere in our presentation. You can email me and I can talk to you about it.
Our emails will be at the end. So, and Camden County is a wealth of knowledge on that. I have reached out to them, but a lot of libraries in the country are doing that now. Probably a lot of people in this room already have experience with it. Digital literacy is another really big barrier. And as Ashley mentioned before about information redlining, specifically marginalized groups, the BIPOC community are at a massive disadvantage strictly because they cannot access not only the internet, but the technology that they need to use it and just promote their own well-being or their own education. So libraries are a prime resource for addressing digital literacy and the digital divide. Most of us offer computer classes, and that could look like anything from how to use a mouse to how to use Microsoft Word to how to use Instagram to promote yourself. You can get really creative. Everything is on the internet now, so there's no end to what you can be offering instruction on. You can also offer a video database access for training videos, which is lynda.com or Udemy, and in certain cases, I'm sure people also, oh, I think somebody's not muted. I think in some cases people do make their own training videos. That is something that we're considering actually doing here, just because we don't have an instructor available all the time for the skills that people need to sit down at our computers and learn. So having a database or creating a database is a really good step in the right direction there. And then one-on-one instruction. A lot of people benefit from that one-on-one instruction. Not everyone benefits from a classroom setting. Especially if they're learning very new skills or skills that they haven't used in a really long time. So offering that one-on-one instruction is huge for those customers who need that individualized attention. They need all your time. We all have had that experience of helping somebody print a print job for the 5th day in a row. So if we sit down with someone instead and teach them and provide them with the tools to do it themselves, that's one less barrier for them. And that's more time that we can help other people.
And I'll also add that our library actually has one-on-one instructions offered. It's actually called Assistance by Appointment. It's virtual right now because of the pandemic, I believe. I'm not sure when we're going to start doing in person. And what you do is you make an appointment with a librarian to get one-on-one remote help for your individual informational needs. And a lot of people will use that to learn how to use technology or their devices or just anything that they need help with. So that one-on-one instruction is very good. And it's also it's good for accessibility because people learn differently. So group classes and programming may not be the best for someone. Some people need that one-on-one instruction. And next I'll talk about social work interns. At Camden County Library System in our Camden downtown branch, which is on the Rutgers campus, we have 3 social work interns who are, right, because of the pandemic, I'm not sure if they're actually on site, but they do kind of speak to, and I'm going to say clients because that's the technical term when a social worker or therapist talks to the people that they work with, they call them clients. So our patrons will become their clients. So they talk to clients over the phone and through Zoom. Their hours, I believe, are Monday through Friday, 12 to 4. I can probably verify that in a second because I have it written down somewhere. Yes, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. And patrons can call and speak with a social work intern or request a Zoom appointment. And they help connect patrons to resources such as housing, clothing, food, substance abuse, and disorder recovery. And the social work interns are from the Rutgers Camden School of Social Work at the Camden Downtown branch. This is another thing that I'm very passionate about. My undergraduate degree is in psychology. So I'm always looking into new ways to kind of combine like mental health literacy and awareness in libraries. And this is one of the best ways you can do it. It's beneficial to the interns because they get experience, and it's beneficial to our patrons because a lot of times they will come to us looking for information. And it's very important that we guide them in the right direction and give them the resources that work best for them. But we don't always know what's best for them because we are not social workers. So that way we have that person or people who can guide them to get the resources that they need.
And I will say, thanks to the Camden County program, there's already a model for this. So our library is looking to provide, to bring these interns to provide this service in our libraries as early as next September, I hope. And Long Branch Public Library, as most of you probably know, has a robust social work intern program partnership as well. So it's very doable. The model exists, and regardless of the size of your library, I think that you can pursue this if you're interested.
Oh, quickly, I'm seeing in the chat that people are talking about different databases. So I wanted to mention that our library does have a lot of them. We also have Creative Bug, and
yeah,
like there's Brain Fuse. I think that you can get that through the state library, but I'm not sure how long that lasts. I think that's like until funding runs out. But yeah, definitely check with like the state library to see like there's resources that they can kind of extend to your library too at no charge. So
absolutely, and they usually have great training videos for staff, which is helpful for us. We're going to talk about serving specific needs too. So everything that we spoke about thus far is a little broad. It's pretty far reaching, which is important, but sometimes figuring out what people need means going to finding these groups, these specific needs in your community. A couple of examples of the specific needs that we service based on the partnerships that we have. One of them is Servicios de Latinos. It's an Hispanic heritage group in Burlington County. Burlington County does not have a particularly high population of a particularly large Latinx community, but this is a pre-existing organization that helps to serve that community, and we have partnered with them to provide tours. From one of our bilingual staff, we partnered with them to do focus groups. We represent our library at their events. So even though it's not a particularly large group, it's still a very important service group, especially because unfortunately a lot of this group does fall into that underserved community. And then the Grants group, this one is pretty cool. And this is one of my favorite examples of one of those like niche groups. So the Grants group, it stands for Grandparents Reaching Out, Advocating, Networking, and Doing It Successfully. It was a group that appointed itself and came to the library to find space to meet. And then we ended up forming a partnership with them, a not-for-profit group that began in March 2019. Their mission is to serve as a support group that addresses the unique needs of grandparents raising grandchildren through advocacy, community support, and educational programs. So we provide them the space, and we do connect them with resources, and they're able to offer this really important service for, again, a small community, but a community with a lot of need. I think that Grants, their title says it all. And they're members of a lot of different communities within Burlington County. And I don't know, I just think it's a very cool program that sort of fell into our lap. So pay attention to who's reaching out to you to use your space, who's asking if you have space. Even if you don't have meeting room space, pay attention to the people that are asking and see if there's some way that you can support them outside of that.
So at my library, I'm going to focus on one program that we have just because there's a lot to talk about with this one program. And this is our Literacy Volunteers of America program. This is another program that I'm passionate about because it's very important that we provide avenues for people who are immigrants who are new to this country or have been in this country for a while and either want to become kind of increase their literacy, or if they want to learn English or become better at speaking it, more fluent. This is a program that was created for those people. And the program is funded mostly by a grant that's overseen by the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development, along with some donations from just various people who wish to donate. And the mission of the Library Volunteers of America program is to help adults achieve their personal education and job-related goals by teaching reading, writing, computational, and conversational skills through instructors trained by the organization. So they offer English as a second language. They offer classes that are taught by tutors, and the tutors are actually people who have been trained. So they're people from the community who have an interest in tutoring, and they can be trained. I believe it's like 6 weeks. It's like a weekly thing, and they come in and they're trained, and then when they're done training, they start tutoring people for the ESL classes, kind of like sessions. And right now, everything is virtual because of the pandemic. And we also have basic literacy tutoring in math and reading. I believe that we still have a program at the One Stop Center in Camden. I believe it's in Cherry Hill now. And I think a lot of the basic literacy classes are done there. And there's a coordinator there who kind of coordinates those different trainings. And they also provide topical workshops in financial literacy, family literacy, digital literacy, and citizenship prep. And the organization has trained over 120 volunteer tutors and on a yearly basis enrolls over 170 ESL and basic literacy students. So this program has been going on for a very long time, I believe since the 90s. And it's a really great program. I have actually met some of the students because I work on the third floor. So I'm on the same floor as literacy. I've kind of helped out sometimes with when our old director, Shamoli Day, was there. I got to kind of see the basic literacy classes and kind of see how the tutoring works when I was working with her for a grant that we were working on a couple of years ago for Books and Cooks program. So this is definitely, even if you could have something, okay, it costs a lot of money to kind of have a program like this, but if you can have something similar or some connection or some partnership that kind of creates a link between your community and people getting ESO training or literacy training, that's very important. Definitely is great for information equity because it kind of gives people the leg up that they need, which is the equity part. So instead of just saying equality, everybody gets equal access, you're making sure that people have the tools they need to obtain that equal access. And language barriers are definitely something that can make it hard to get the information that you need in this country.
Absolutely. ESL groups in general, I think that usually there are people in your community who are willing to come in and host those groups. So it's just a matter of finding them if you aren't already doing it. And related to that, we're going to talk about outreach. Outreach is one of the most important things in my mind for us to be focusing on if our resources allow us to. A lot of people, again, are not using the library because they don't know what the library has for them. And so getting out into the community and meeting people where they are is so transformational as far as expanding the reach of what you're doing in your library. So that includes school partnerships and community organizations. We have all done a back to school night or, a township day, and those are really important, but also just getting more involved with who is in your school, the guidance counselors, obviously your school media specialists, any kind of a reading literacy group, any group that can really benefit from the library's resources, host tours of your library, create virtual tours. That's especially important for your neurodiverse patients, giving them something to experience before they actually come into your physical building. And then community organizations, there are innumerable community organizations working to serve the underserved communities that you are also trying to help. And so don't reinvent the wheel, or do, but make sure you know what everybody else is doing in your community. Who is offering ESL? Who is offering social services, application help? Who has social work interns already? Can you bring them into your library? Can you go out to them? I particularly enjoy going to community organizational meetings and presenting on what the library has, because without a doubt, someone in that room is shocked at all the things we have to offer for free, and almost none of it is library card related specifically, so anyone can come in and use our computers, and anyone can come in and use our spaces. And once we have stuff like our social work intern program, anyone can come in and use that program. Anyone can come in and get digital instruction. But people don't know that until you tell them a lot of the time. So I'm a big proponent of getting out into your community and connecting with them. And you can start anywhere. I guarantee you already have at least one partnership that you can build on if you aren't already doing that. And then as far as outreach, what we're doing, we do have a mobile library. We're very lucky to have our own mobile library that has stops all week long. It's a 2-week schedule. So over 2 weeks, we hit probably 10, 15, 20 stops, depending. A lot of the communities we go to are 55 and older communities, retirement communities. And we're working on expanding that to, right now we have a stop at our local human services building, which is where a lot of people come for social services. In addition to that, we're adding our mobile tech unit, our mobile outreach unit, to do that tech instruction out in the community and offer people an opportunity to circulate those devices, to check out those devices without having to come all the way to their local library, because who's to say that they can even do that on their own. As you can tell, I'm really jazzed about it. I love outreach. I think it's really, really important. So if you're not already doing it and you have the capability. I understand that staffing plays a part in that, but if you have the capability, sometimes it's just as simple as walking down the main street of your town or going into the municipal building and introducing yourself. I think also in-person introductions make a much bigger impact if you're able to do that, or setting up a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I kind of wish that we could have more mobile, like a mobile library and a mobile tech unit at our library too. We're getting there, but
Everyone's getting there. No
there.
pressure. Yeah, we're all doing different stuff.
But we do have some really, really great outreach programs that we've started. Some of them are ongoing, and the first one that I'm going to talk about is a very new one. So what I'm saying now is everything is still kind of in the works. So some things may change, some things may stay the same, but we have a general idea of how the Tech Takeout program is going to work. So the Tech Takeout program is what we're going to do with the rest of our funds. So part of it's going to go towards the library document stations, and then the rest of it is going to go towards this Tech Takeout program. So the grant that we applied for and we got, it supports digital inclusion efforts to reach and assist residents, particularly in the areas that support education, health, and workforce development needs. So the Tech Takeout program is directly has a great benefit to people who own businesses, people who may be content creators online or may have their own business where they're working from home mostly, online businesses, because you're going to see that a lot now because of the pandemic, because it's still ongoing. So you'll still see people working from home, and it might just be like a permanent thing. A lot of people doing their own content, like YouTube, different websites. So what we're offering is going to help those people. So the program is going to be like a lending program where we lend devices such as scanners, portable printers, portable projectors, conference webcams, podcast microphones, ring lights, and video production kits. They're going to be available for loan at no cost. We're still hashing out the details with that. I kind of heard 2-week increments, but that could change like for the loan period. So that's not set in stone. We're also going to have the library document station, shredders, and laminators available at all of our branches eventually. And the library is going to have a specially branded library card for the business community. And another thing that I have heard, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work, but we want to extend it to business owners who may not live in Camden County, but own a business in Camden County. So that's another thing that's being hatched out. But we want to make sure that we're providing access to anyone in the county who can benefit from this. So it's definitely great. I just learned about it, I believe, last week. So the details I have were told to me from our IT department head who helped write the grant. So it's really great. And it's definitely something that fits right along with information equity and making opportunities available to those who may not have the means. And a lot of times those people are people of color because the equipment is very expensive. Another partnership that we have that's very, very important because it benefits those who are incarcerated or people who are going to be released soon. So it's kind of like dealing with people in different stages of that. Our Juvenile Detention Center partnership. That was facilitated by our branch manager at our Camden downtown branch, and her name is Julie Tozer. It's a partnership with the Camden County Jail, Youth Services Commission, and the Youth Center, which is a juvenile detention center in Camden County. Julie has attended different county service roundtables, including the county's reentry committee. So that's kind of where the idea came from and where the partnerships form. So the library actually hosts book discussions on titles about mass incarceration and social justice. I've actually attended a couple because I'm a college student. I didn't have time to read the books, but the discussion was great and the book choices are right on point. And they definitely are eye-opening for people who want to learn more about what people who are currently incarcerated or have been incarcerated, like what, the experience is like for them. And it may also just change your opinion, your perception of what the needs of this part of our community needs, because these people do come into our library too. And our library also provides books and materials to the facilities. I believe that We have a planned lending library on site with the I believe at the Camden County Jail. That was something that we started, but it's paused because of COVID. We did order the books because I work in tech services. I'm actually responsible for ordering the books. I'm usually the person who sees the list. The books are well chosen. It's a well curated collection. And also some of our team librarians also created a collection of high interest, diverse book selections. So it's a lot. So I'm like, I'm getting things mixed up. But just in summary, we're working with the facilities to kind of make sure that they have the books that they need. Not everybody knows, but a lot of jails and prisons, they get their books through donations. It's hard for prisoners to get books because there's so many restrictions on what can and can't be read, and sending them can be very expensive because they have to be sent a certain way. So it's great that the library is helping to provide the prison and jail libraries and the youth detention center libraries with the information books that they need. And yeah, so if you have any questions about that, you can email me. I can link you to Julie Tozer if that's something you might want to be interested in doing at your library.
And then for our last slide, we're going to get through this pretty quickly. I know we have another 8 minutes, but we're both just going to talk about our individual DEI efforts within our library systems. And I know this is something that we've both been in contact before about getting more information. So absolutely feel free to reach out to either of us about these things. But yes, DEI efforts, we're seeing them more and more all the time. It's, I think, the crux of sort of why we're all here today, that equity piece right there, and inclusion especially as well. Excuse me, it's not just about diversity anymore. It's, it's that really great quote about being invited to the party or being asked to dance. So just consider that when you're doing these efforts, putting together a team, a group effort is a bigger impact. You have more heads in the space. It's not just one person determining what is necessary to do. And then Ash, you can talk a little bit real quick about Camden.
Yeah, so just really quickly, our team, we call it diversity and inclusion team, but we do focus on accessibility as well. So one of the things that we actually are doing really quickly, we're going to create a kind of like a library of low vision aids and aids for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. That includes like hearing loops that can be put on desks to kind of amplify the sound for people who use hearing aids. We're going to have magnifiers, lights, all different things that patrons can use to kind of enhance their experience while they're in the library. And some of the things they're going to be able to take home as well. So yeah, definitely everything Rosy said, for the sake of time. I don't want to get too much detail. If you have questions, you can email me.
Yeah, we're both taking very different approaches. So whereas Camden County has, I think you have a bigger team than I do, and you approached assessing your services. What I was able to do is pull together a small team. About a year ago, we started looking at the library's resources for staff. We put a lot of effort into making sure staff had resources for personal and professional growth, education, educating themselves on the experiences of other people, especially marginalized groups or people that are not, that need a little bit more help to succeed, for whom the world is just that much more difficult to navigate. So we put together resource lists. We also prioritize staffed training, and we were really fortunate to be able to get an EBSCO grant through ALA to bring in Lourdes Tango to train our staff on anti-bias work. And so we prioritize that piece first, but we also have plans for and have already started supporting departments in evaluating collections and policies, anything that you can evaluate or perform an audit on. Programming, what does your programming look like? Just to make sure that the way that you're presenting to the community is inclusive, that people know that you have stuff for them, and that's especially in the accessibility realm, but also just simply, am I represented in the collection? Not me, of course. But we want to make sure that other communities, everyone's represented in the collection, in the programming. So to that point, visibility matters a lot when it comes to doing DEI work. Just saying you're going to do it or just putting together a team is not enough. You need to actually be putting work out into the world as soon as possible. What we prioritize, as well as staff training, we prioritize a value statement, which I can share with everyone later if you're interested. But this communicates the values that we're building our services off of, and the values that we're choosing our resources based off of. So it's different than a vision statement. A vision statement is sort of like a goal, whereas a value statement is sort of that groundwork, you know, I'm missing the word here, but the baseline that you're working off of. And then again, as far as displays, programs, resources, if people don't see themselves reflected in your displays, in your programming, in the books that you're buying, in the way that you are representing certain holidays or months of the year, then they're not going to think the library is for them, and they're not going to feel comfortable using it. So visibility is a huge piece of DEI. And again, if you're working to provide information equity and you're putting effort into that, you want to make sure that people are seeing what you're doing so that they know to come to the library for what they need. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Ash?
I just want to add quickly, just from the perspective of a person of color, be very careful with value statements and your displays and everything that you do, because if you do these things without the actual intent to encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is going to look performative and your community will know. So please, please, please educate yourselves. Make sure when you put a multicultural display up, or even if it's not during a Heritage Month, if you do something with Indigenous people or just any like people of color, please actually like educate yourselves and know about the background of things. Don't just do it just because it looks good. And with value statements, be very, very careful, because if you do not actually do the things that you say you're going to do, your stakeholders and your library, your patrons know it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. And to that end, don't just put up multicultural displays to celebrate a Heritage Month or a Heritage Day. Make sure you're consistently representing these communities, because if you're only doing it, if you're only, you know, representing Hispanic communities during Hispanic Heritage Month, then that's a little performative. You want to make sure that your Hispanic communities know that they are represented in the library all year long. Okay, so that is all for us. Here are our email addresses. Anybody, I know we're both very open to being contacted about anything we spoke about today. I'm really excited to see what ended up on the Padlet and in the chat. And unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. We need to move on to the next segment, but thank you again so much for having us. This has been wonderful, and I really am excited to see what everybody's sharing, because one of my favorite things about being a librarian is how good we all are at sharing stuff with each other.
Thank you so much, Ashley Mitchell and Rosy Wagner, for that inspirational keynote. It really set the tone for today's sessions. And I'm, I guess even if you don't have all of these resources in this library system to draw upon, you could maybe try to do one or two of the things that they suggested. Rosy and Ashley's contact information is on this slide. I'm also going to ask both of you, could you add your contact information to the Padlet as well? I see that people have been adding resources there, and I appreciate that. So we'll keep those up for later on.